So, hey everybody, Kara here. So, just waiting a little bit for people to join in. Meanwhile, just, anything you'd like to share about yourself, comments, questions, fears, feelings, events. So already you're from California, and Third Coast. Haven't seen you before. Welcome. Hey Karen, Texas, great. A lot of crazy energy is being felt from all the planetary release and others awakening, says RD. Yeah, it is crazy, and sometimes it's overwhelming. I'm feeling a bit of that, just the overwhelm. Hey Edith. Solar plexus. Do you feel, this is a question for all of you, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling like you're just burnt out, what happens in your body? Do you feel cut off from your energy source, maybe the solar plexus, maybe feeling like your heart shuts down, feeling like your mind just disappears somewhere? And how do you cope with it? How do you overcome it? How long does it take? Any practices that could be useful for others? Hey Candice. Hey Maria. Well, let's start with that, because I think this is a useful question for a lot of us. This whole sense of being in burnout or feeling overwhelmed. And it's good stuff, it's part of our awakening. It's necessary in some ways to learn to balance shadows and light. As long as we recognize that much of what we're feeling and experiencing is a response that is coming up, is programs in response to increasing light. So it's not, people talk about the battle of dark and light, and on a certain level it seems to be true, especially when you look at the political, medical, pharmaceutical arenas. But on another level, it's simply response to greater light, what Sri Aurobindo referred to as the supramental light. And so he always spoke about the supramental catastrophe, which is the response to this light, which may seem to be really overwhelming and difficult, but compared to what could have been, it's actually much more graceful. So we need to keep that in mind, and we need to just keep our personalities happy in whatever ways we can. Hey Rena, Diane. So Edith says physical symptoms. Noticing vibe goes down. I use Palo Santo, and that helps. Yeah, great. Different kinds of incense, essential oils, even even bathing, if you have a bathtub available with essential oils, and bathing in the ocean, in the streams, especially if it's cold. It really energizes the nervous system. Third coast, intense moments of pressure and confusion to clarity, feeling burnout and exhaustion. Wow. Who isn't feeling this way? And I think this also helps to know that, especially for those who are awakening, it's normal. And for those who are suffering, it may be harder if you're not in touch with the big picture, because then where do you look for hope? Where do you turn to when you need support? There's so much infighting happening between each other, within families, in communities where there's polarization, getting vaccinated or not getting vaccinated, political affiliations or whatever it may be, and it's all designed to create separation. And we can focus on that, which is what creates even more suffering, or we can let go, which means letting go of programs that keep us in separation. It's not the issues. Issues change all the time, but it's the programming of separation that will somehow, will create any issues to separate from each other. It's part of the divide and conquer mindset. It's part of our genetic programming at the moment. And we're learning how to break through that. I also completely understand, says RD, if you prefer not to have to talk on that subject and would rather keep your focus elsewhere. I think the focus is wherever it is and being present with whatever is. And so many of us are going through this, including myself. Circumstances around not feeling supported, not really knowing that we're going to make it through all this can be discouraging. The weather, Paula talks about the weather being very strange. It ought to be spring here, but it looks like autumn. Is it Gaia, or could it be induced by man to keep people indoors? Yeah, good questions. I don't know if there's any answers. I think it's all of it, all of the above. It's certainly, part of a planetary cycle. We've crossed over into a cooling cycle, which will become quite intense with this current solar cycle, and perhaps even more so in the next 2 or 3 solar cycles. So expect that in the next 30, 40 years, we'll go through even more climate changes, accompanied by galactic waves and cosmic ray incursions and magnetic field weakening, all of which affects our emotions, affects our bodies. So yes, it's part of Gaia's cycle, it's part of her journey as well, and her purpose, which is to create a cocooning followed by a metamorphosis. So anything that we have become identified with in the past, it's time to let go. So, yeah, Maria is asking, how is the real situation in India? It's discouraging. Well, okay, I'll speak honestly. There's a lot of political agendas which are using the COVID agendas to create more chaos, suffering, and death, which also creates for more political affiliations when people don't trust themselves or trust each other. When people are in fear, they give the power over to whoever is in charge, and whoever says, yes, I'll take care of you. I'll provide the vaccines, I'll provide the oxygen for a self-imposed, or not self-imposed, but fear-imposed issue. So everybody around me is getting vaccinated, and everybody feels like they're helping each other by doing so. I just heard today someone sent me a Facebook Messenger meme about the health minister of India who allowed himself to get vaccinated on camera just to prove to people that it was safe and effective. And within 24 hours, he was dead. So, I don't know if it's true, but it seems to be very poetic in terms of how this whole thing has been working, and it's happening around the world. So whatever the agenda behind it is, if we focus only on the agenda, we're in trouble. If we also focus on what's behind it on the light side, which is that we're being forced to confront our fears, we're being forced to find our power, we're being forced to make choices based on trusting ourselves, trusting our hearts, trusting our intuition, and supporting each other, making our voices heard, keeping our spirit strong, and keeping our alignment with the soul. That's what matters in this time. It's about learning to trust. What do we trust? How do we trust? That's what we're learning. It's a learning process. Trust isn't easy when we've been betrayed so often by those we love, by those we trust. Yeah, I feel sad for the children and young people. People who don't know what they're getting into, people who are being forced into making choices, being imposed by choices because of faulty advertising or media control. Yeah, it's sad. And yet, it's part of what is happening. I don't understand all of this. I don't understand why we need to go through so much suffering in order to be free. I can only imagine that is because we've been controlled and abused and victimized so long that it's not easy to break the shackles and shed those chains. But it's happening. It's the time. It's the turning of the age, one way or the other. Yeah, RD, I'm feeling a lot of the same. The burnout, super exhausted lately. Drink lots and lots of water. Lemon water, ginger water, honey water, mix it all together. Use water. Water is healing for the soul. It's nourishing for the nervous system. It's not easy to even give any recommendations when you're feeling so exhausted, because you don't want to meditate, you don't want to take care of yourself. It's like our tendency is to go down in the spiral and feel miserable and self-pitying. I notice those tendencies in myself even, especially when people around me or events around me are so heavy. And in those circumstances, just keeping a memory and perspective is the beginning. And somehow I appreciate that we can come together once a week in this way, not just to meditate, but also just to create a community of support. There you go. Upbeat music, Epsom salt baths. I've been listening to panpipes Leo Rojas' beautiful panpipe musician, and there's many others. Panpipes, the Andean music has such an uplifting quality. Medwin Goodall. So third coast continues diffusing essential oils. Yeah, get a diffuser. Sunshine breaks. Sitting in silence to clear the mind and exhale all helps. There's an attack on critical thinking. I think you're right, third coast. I think this is a deliberate attack. Part of it is mind control, and part of it is using frequencies. In the Montauk project experimented with this, and it's been perfected. So through frequencies, you can actually influence people's mental, emotional, and physical health. And so if we can work with frequencies ourselves, all of these things, the essential oils, help us shift frequency. Frankincense, sandalwood, all these break through the blood-brain barrier and go right into those synapses in the brain which are related to the sensory nervous system, which helps to clear illusions and traumas. Nag Champa, dragon's blood, Palo Santo, nature, breathwork, moving energy with yoga, qigong, breath, giving trust to best good is happening. So, and just knowing that we're not alone, that's a big one too. Sometimes when you see yourself or feel yourself as alone, it's like, I'm done for. No, we're not. And more than each other, there's elemental beings in nature, there's Gaia herself, developing that relationship with nature, relationship with Gaia, not just being in nature, but relating with nature, a communication, listening to, feeling a heart contact where you enter into a silence, and that silence communicates with the silence within nature. And there is a silence in nature, even in the waves, in the rippling of the brooks, and the sound of the crickets and the great winds that blow. There's a silence inside and within all of that, because it comes from that space of presence, Gaia's own heart. Maria says, I don't read newspapers and watch TV, and instead read something inspirational. Read poetry, Rilke, Rumi. Watch movies that touch you, that remind you of the goodness of life, of people, of creation. Yeah, Rena says, coming together with like-minded people and recognizing the cocooning and try and surrender to it. So the cocooning is what we're going through, and the cocooning is essential. Imagine a caterpillar turning into a butterfly without that intervening process. It cannot happen. If we are vibrating at a lower density and are here on this earth in this lifetime to make our ascension as a planetary consciousness, we have to go through this cocooning. We have to confront and release the shadows, the programs, the fear. And that's what we are going through now. If we can see that as part of the process, we know that there's an end to this. Same thing with astrology. You know, I've often looked to astrology as a means for understanding current events and also understanding each other. So when I've worked with clients, for example, as a therapist, looking at their charts, even just to know that there's an end. So someone's going through a Pluto transit. Pluto is intense, death and rebirth. deep transformation, rising from the ashes. But you know that there's an end to this. You know that it's a process. You know that you're going to be confronted by all your fears. You know it's not going to be easy. But at this point it ends. And then a new cycle begins. And it's like that. Maria says, we are not this body. This is our matrix. Exactly. Who am I? Ask yourself that question. At first when you ask yourself that question, your identity, your identification is very much in the personal structure, the body, or the physical body, the mental body, and the emotional body. The etheric body is barely alive, just enough to keep biological functions going, and the soul body is disconnected. Gradually, as we come into soul presence, our attention shifts from the personality to the soul, and we grow into that soul presence. And at that point, it doesn't matter what the feelings and emotions, what the ups and downs are, because our identification is not with that. When our identification is with that, that's what creates suffering. And that's basically what the Buddha was saying. When our identification shifts to the soul, to presence, because that's who we are. We just tend to identify with the personality because of our programs in any given incarnation. But we're letting go of that programming and deliberately shifting our attention to soul presence, however we do it. Meditation, nature, perspective. And then in that process, we learn to trust. Paula says, listen to the Age of Pandora podcasts. I really loved this week's episode. I forget who we had this week. I can't remember. It was Jason Shurka. Last week, I think it was Michael Rhodes. So this has been really upbeat for me as well, just to be in conversation with these brilliant, beautiful hearts and minds, to come to a common perspective of what's happening, why, and where it's going, which direction are we moving, and to know that more and more people are breaking out of the matrix is really important. It's really powerful. Jaylan says, nature tells us everything and is the best healer of all, absolutely. And Jaylan's a beautiful painter, and painting is another, very healing modality, giving expression to what's going on for you. It doesn't have to be, according to someone else's ideas of perfection, but it's an expression of your own journey. Third coast is your sun sign, Pisces. Yes, it is. Good guess. Well, it's not a guess. It's, I think, we're radiating energy fields, and every single planet in our chart radiates a certain field, and the combination of these planets as they move through in life creates a whole ripple effect of expression, which we can relate to. We attract each other through these patterns, and it also determines how we move forward in our lives. Often there'll be very sudden and very important breakthroughs, and they only come at certain times when we're ready for it, but also when our astrology is ready for it. So it's like, these universal energies are powerful. So Pluto or Uranus or Neptune, combined with inner planets, combined with North and South Node junctions, all of these, there's meaning to this. The same thing is happening on a planetary level. We're going through planetary cycles. They're astrological to some degree, but they're galactic also. So we're responding to galactic waves coming in from the center of our galaxy, coming in from elsewhere, from Cygnus, from other places in our universe, beyond our current galaxy. And all of these interact with other energies. The Hindus talk about the yugas, which are cycles that our sun makes along with Sirius as we circle the center of our galaxy. And this determines whether we go through an age of light or an age of darkness. And currently we're actually coming out of an age of darkness. We've entered Dwapara Yuga and then Treta and Satyuga. So increasing light and all that it entails. And this particular cycle of light is different from previous cycles of light because in this unified light, there's no oppositional energies of dark. In terms of duality, we're moving past duality. So dark and light simply become a polarity of expression of relative composition. It's not about right and wrong and good and bad, which then creates addiction and suffering or resistance and pain. Sushina, even if the weather is unstable, it's not a warm spring, we can go out anyway. We have to go out. Be Salka. Salka means be in the flow of light and nature. And remember that we are natural beings. In a civilized world, we've become so accustomed to being pampered and limited by controlled temperatures, air conditioning and central heating, where our bodies are designed to thrive in extremes of climate. Look at the indigenous people. Either they migrate or they simply get accustomed to extremes of temperature so their bodies are comfortable. They change the hemoglobin levels in their blood. You walk in the Himalayan valleys, you see people barefoot in snow. You see people living comfortably at 12, 15,000 feet elevations, in touch with Salka, in touch with the prana, with life force. And somehow, because of our need to control everything externally as well as internally, we've lost touch with our own abilities to balance and to sustain ourselves. So plants and animals are always out, and we are nature like them. Let's remember, absolutely. Lots of dolphin hearts and ice cream cones. Okay, Edith makes a comment which I don't fully understand. Champa is a bit too strong for me. I don't quite get that. There's an Inca ritual using the champas, which are belts. So these are 5 belts. And when the energies are out of balance, we can work with these belts to balance them. I'm not sure if this is what Edith is referring to. And then Sushina says, civilization has really ruined us. A little rain intimidates us. It is water, not stones. If it's cold, we cover ourselves up. How many of you have read the books of Tom Brown Jr.? And there's so many others like him, but his teachings have influenced me so much. And he talks about, when he was 7 years old, he met an Apache elder who was in his 80s at the time, who was one of these very natural human beings, completely at home in his body, completely in touch with the natural forces around him, who looked and behaved as if he was 30 years old, very much aware of the flaws, and with his senses able to perceive way past what any of us are capable of perceiving. So knowing when there's a bear that enters the forest 5 miles away, or knowing that there's a deer in going out in this direction, or a family of elk above that, beyond that mountain range, knowing when it's safe or when it's not. These things are messages received through our contact with elemental spirits in nature, and through the aspect of ourselves, which is elemental. So when the Celtics, for instance, talked about elves and fairies, it's not just those who are connected with natural forces around them, animals and trees and flowers and so on, but also connected with their own bodies. So there's an elemental spirit that's connected with each one of us that may look like an elf, that others can perceive, that animals can perceive. And if animals perceive that, they know you're safe. If animals don't perceive that, they're suspicious. And unconsciously we greet each other and relate to each other along the same principles. We feel, well, I already mentioned astrology, but there's elemental energies that we carry, that we balance. And when they're out of balance, other people perceive that, nature perceives that, Gaia perceives that. When they're in balance, then all of nature opens up to us, beyond terrestrial forms even. So we contact extraterrestrial beings and galactic forces, and we're in touch with elements within the body of the earth, the dragons, the nature beings. So that's much bigger than, the personality structures. So yeah, so we're learning. This is part of our journey. It's part of the cocooning as we emerge into the butterfly. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it is happening. It's already been happening. Compare yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago. See how far we've all come. What's the title of the book? The ones by Tom Brown Jr. The Quest is one, The Vision, Grandfather, The Journey. There's some others also. They're probably out of print, but I think you might find them in used bookstores. Michael Rhodes also, I mean, he's got about 23 books out. Michael Rhodes, Carlos Castaneda, Tom Brown Jr., many of, they're all in the same category for me. So Sheena says, if the soul authorizes you to go out, go out. Lockdowns and curfews are illegitimate and unconstitutional, unnatural, and unhealthy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Unmask yourselves on many levels. Well, we could go into a whole rant about this. Yeah, so ultimately, one of the things I like about Age of Pandora is an exchange of perspective, and listening to so many different perspectives every week. I'm learning about what this pandemic, or so-called pandemic, is really about, what the virus is about. A virus is not something that can be harmful unless we react to this through fear. A virus is simply a program, it's a DNA program, and it's here to support an awakening. If we surrender to any virus, I'm not even just talking about this COVID thing, any virus, it's simply a way of breaking down the immune system, where it's resisting something that can actually support our bodies towards wholeness, towards the next layer of our awakening. It's the same thing to do with mental or emotional programs. we have to confront those programs. We have to see it for what it is and release, and then we're ready to step into the unknown. So our DNA is going through massive changes now in response to galactic and cosmic forces, solar and terrestrial forces. And so our bodies are responding to these evolutionary energies. They're mutating, literally mutating. So when this cosmic energy is entering into the Earth's atmosphere, it's creating changes within the tectonic fields. So there's earthquakes, volcanoes, climate changes happening as a result, but also importantly, they're affecting our bodies, and especially the subtle bodies. So let it happen, and don't resist, and don't see this pandemic as an enemy. Whether we're talking about the virus itself, some say bioweapons, or whether we're talking about the control systems that are pushing a certain agenda, because even that is necessary in order for us to confront our collective shadows, to see it for what it is, to make different choices, first on a soul level, then as we feel guided to make those choices on the outer level, and then collectively we allow ourselves to move to the next layer of our humanity. So when the Incas talk about Homo luminous, the new human, the divine human, it's not something that you can manufacture. It's not like artificial intelligence. You turn on a button. It happens by our daily, moment-to-moment confrontation with our shadows, with our fears. It's a practice. It's a discipline. But we're not alone. And that's why we're here on this earth. So, Sushina, thank you for saying this. Nothing and nothing can stop those who have decided not to be stopped. It's time to go beyond yourself, to dare. So to go beyond the personal self and to merge with that divine presence, which is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, all-wise, all-beautiful, and creative. Flori, I love you. So, let's make a connection with the natural world. So, we've learned to experience the earth as a physical quality. So when we talk about nature, we're talking about things we see and react to and respond to and communicate with on an outer level. We go to a stream, we swim in the ocean, we sit by a tree. But what about connecting with the spirit of that tree, the spirit of that ocean, the spirit of that eagle? How does that happen? The nature spirits are so abounding, and they wish to communicate with us. So when you have animal communicators like Anna Breitenbush, who communicate very clearly, very understandably with the animal world, they receive information which is very practical. It's by connecting with that elemental force within nature and developing a relationship. So nature, just like we, is a multidimensional presence. So what's here, this is part of nature. But this body, what I see with the physical senses is the physical body. What I sense beyond that, when I connect with the emotional body or the mental body, is something else. That's where we relate to each other as people, as personalities. Then beyond that, we relate to each other as the soul. There's a soul presence that creates an attractive quality where we find ourselves through another. And that's the relationship with nature that we are striving for. Gaia is a multidimensional being just like us. She has a physical body, which we call nature. But then she also has an emotional and mental body. She has a soul body. And all of these are linked together through prana, through the etheric body of the earth, through the ley lines, through the nervous system of the earth, which includes humans, and through all the species on this planet. Each one has a specific purpose. And all together we become the soul of Gaia. So it's taken a long time for us to realize the soul. Generations and millennia, every time there's a change in species, there's a new soul that comes into being. So as we have more contact with galactic families, as species disappear and go extinct, it changes our vibrational structures. As we make contact with inner earth civilizations, that changes our experience of who we are. So we may not consciously be aware of these things, but in connecting with the soul of Gaia, we become aware of this on subtle levels, and we respond to this on the same subtle levels. So our meditations in nature can help us to connect with the soul of Gaia. And if there's no nature that we can go out to for this moment, your own body is also part of nature. Enter into your body, enter into the cells of your body. Vipassana is a beautiful practice to initiate that. Illness is a practice. So your body is sick, all right? What's going on? Where is it located? What are the energetic structures responsible for this? How can you transform those energetic structures? What's the emotions connected with this? Is there some kind of self-pity? Is there some kind of fear or ideas of betrayal, not being good enough? How is that affecting our state of health? Is there some deep grief? The Chinese meridians, each meridian is linked with a certain emotion and is a cycle of balance. So we're connected in so many more ways than we realize. And as we just listen, Michael was really, he said this so beautifully. We have learned to hear things, but we don't listen. We've learned to look, but we don't see. We learn to sense, but we're not sensitive. We've been using our intellect, but we're not intelligent. Intelligence has to do with the soul. And this is what we're discovering within Gaia. We're connecting with the soul of Gaia. Yes, so Sushina continues, the masks are illegitimate. Yeah, all these things. It's like, but they're all symbols too, aren't they? So here we are putting on masks when what we're being called to do is to unmask not just these little pieces of cloth, but ourselves, our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our emotions, our spirits. We're learning to unmask ourselves to be free. So we're not free by simply stripping off those external masks and refusing to take some jab. We're free because we're making choices based on soul, which can see through the illusion and choose something different. And these choices then go out, ripple across the collective. We are being called to be keepers for humanity, keepers, protectors for the earth. And how else do we do that except through making soulful choices, by confronting illusions, by refusing to get bound in duality and continuing to see what's real, who we are, what we are, why we are. All right, so let's just take a few minutes. We connect wherever you are with something that's linked with nature. If you're outside, great. If you're inside, nature is all around you. It's not just the natural world, it's also, these headphones over here. What goes into them? These are a living consciousness too. If we recognize that everything is alive, like the Incas believed, everything has soul. So they don't make a distinction between artificial and natural. And so we can connect with nature wherever we are, through our bodies, through the walls and curtains, the floors. So it's like the elemental spirit of nature takes you right down to subatomic levels and beyond subatomic into the energetic levels, into the essence of creation, which is one spirit. As Tom Brown likes to say, it's the one spirit moving through all things. All things, not just living things, all things. Not what we call living things, because everything is alive. So, okay, I tend to go off on these rants, but let's connect with nature in whatever form it shows itself in this moment. Through the breath. So the elements, the element of air, as we breathe in, as we breathe out, we're connecting with nature, we're connecting with prana. Connecting with or listening to the vibrational frequency of your body. Maybe different parts of your body have different vibrational frequencies. When there's stiffness, when there's pain, there's a certain vibrational frequency that goes with it. When there's a feeling of openness, there's a vibrational frequency with it. When there's disorientation, when you're experiencing a headache, when you're feeling a bit lost or hurt, when something hurts your heart, there's a vibrational frequency. No good or bad, no right and wrong. Just listening, seeing, sensing, connecting, without judgment, without interpretation. Listening to your breath, looking for sensations in your body. So now your body is becoming nature. Your body is a fractal expression of Gaia. There's many different layers of body linked with each other through ether. So there's the four elements of earth and water, air and fire, which make up the physical structures and the nervous system, the communication systems, the metabolic systems within the body. And then there's ether, which connects us with the worlds around us multidimensionally, connects us with the entire universe as a holographic presence. Call on Gaia, call on Divine Mother. And Divine Mother is this expression of light permeating every single subatomic particle. working through all these different elements, the 5 elements, connecting with the soul of creation. That is Divine Mother. Divine Father is that which is beyond time and space, infinite consciousness. So Shakti and Shiva interacting constantly with each other. Electrical and magnetic forces interacting constantly with each other. And this is what weaves these different bodies together, so we become multidimensional. So we engage with the light body. So we awaken to who we are. So we recognize Gaia for who she is. Flory says Jesus calls our bodies as visible consciousness that help me to comprehend that every atom originates in divine consciousness. And what's invisible to our physical eyes is still visible to our etheric vision or astral vision, which means that even when we pass through the passageway that men call death, it's only the physical body that dies. Our subtle senses become even more alive, our subtle identity becomes even more present. It's as if nothing changed, really. Consciousness simply crosses a threshold and continues to express itself through subtler senses in subtler worlds, which in those worlds appear to be just as real, just as physical as in this world. In fact, people say that when someone dies, at first they're not even aware, many of them, that they're dead. I say dead in quotes, simply because everything still looks the same, feels the same. You see people that you knew, and then slowly you start moving out further across dimensions and begin to experience other worlds independent of this world. People you know come and receive you and guide you on, or there's other aspects of your soul family that come and support you and teach you. But there's no real separation in the way that the rational mind likes to think, where death is the end. And so what is there to fear? Nature doesn't fear death. It's simply a cycle. You cannot have a static cycle of life where everything remains the same forever. Change takes many forms. But once we know that we can trust change and surrender to the process of change, we know we can trust life and open to life more fully. So remember the difference between Sami and Hucha. Sami is the flow, surrendering to the flow, whatever that may be in this moment, because you trust that the universe is friendly, everything that takes place is good. And Hucha is the resistance to this change based on a fear, whether it's programmed by the collective, whether it's somehow influenced by childhood experiences or later adult experiences that have taught us to not trust the universe or not trust people or not trust circumstances. So we're learning now to disidentify with the person, the aspect of ourself that has taken these slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Hamlet phrased it. And as we depersonalize, we realize it's all Sami. And in that moment, we move beyond third dimensional duality into something else. I'm not going to define other dimensions because sometimes we tend to get too fixed in our definitions. But just, let's say, moving into soul presence, into a multidimensional awareness. Knowing we can trust, knowing that it's a friendly universe, knowing that we're on a journey of awakening, that nothing can stop, and knowing that Gaia is the one who has invited us here to share this adventure, to partake in it, and to co-create it. So I hope this helps those of us who've been feeling a bit distraught or burnt out or overwhelmed. Just to get a perspective makes a difference. So next week in Age of Pandora, this will be Tuesday or Wednesday depending on where you are, we have Jacqueline Longstaff, who is a Danish friend of mine. She's created this program called the Cosmic Airport. So, the arrival lounge is birth, departure lounge is death. Physical birth, physical death. And it's about navigating and consciously crossing those thresholds. The week after that, we have Mitchell Rabin, who's a friend of mine. I met him at the same time as I met Jacqueline, actually, in India. And he's been involved with a lot of free energy, breakthrough technologies. He's also got his own radio television program called abetterworld.net. The week after that, we have Elena Danan, who's a wonderful channel and communicator. And she's been working with many different galactic races and has a lot to share about our journey at this time. The following week, we have Mark and Phyllis Birkenhoff. Very similar, their own ET experiences and perspectives on where we're going as planetary consciousness. The following week, we have JJ and Desiree Hertak, who wrote the Keys of Enoch. And this is also, really important to understand the geometrical layers that are involved in sacred geometry and sites and our own personal journeys. So just a preview. So I hope you can join us. Earlier interviews are archived on the Above Duality YouTube website. And I also want to say that two other things. Every November, I've been taking people out to swim with dolphins in the Red Sea in Egypt. We didn't go last week for obvious reasons. Hopefully we can go this week. And if you're interested, please let me know. There's a limited number. We can have 20 people on a boat, which will be anchored for a week in this beautiful coral bay, which is home for wild dolphins. And then the other thing is that we've been doing a cycle of webinars, going deeper into the Inca teachings, Ilahi the Advaita teachings, integral yoga, and so on. Just sharing our journeys as we evolve. So if people are interested in joining, we just finished a year-long cycle. So let me know. Some of you have already contacted me. So yeah, let's see where we go with all this. Or at least until we can start, or I can start traveling physically. We'll be doing the webinars and these teachings. So thank you for joining me, and please pass this information as well as this vibration onwards into the collective. So blessings, much love. Namaste. I'll just read something from Third Coast. Just hearing your voice and beautiful words is melodic and soul-soothing. I so resonate with your message and energy. I know we're in the same soul tribe. Maybe a Pisces thing. Yeah, love to stay more in touch. Just email me. Let's connect. I feel that way with so many people on this call. We're old soul friends. We've known each other in so many ways, either on this earth through different events we've done together, or as soul families. There's a question: any online Ilahi Nur initiations? We'll probably do some of this. So when I talked about doing these webinars, that will include Ilahi Nur. If people don't want to go through, a monthly program, we can just do a weekend thing. wherever. And last time was designed more for people in Europe, because the people who were part of this were mostly from the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and Italy, and so on. But I know there's a lot of people in North America, and we could create a separate group. Okay, I don't want to go on too long. So thank you for bringing yourselves together for these times.